This week, 5 years after many of us presumed marriage equality to be settled law, two of the other dissenters in that landmark case, Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, came out and blasted the decision, saying it left, quote, those with religious objections in the lurch, and that, quote, the court has created a problem only it can fix. Today is National Coming Out Day, and our focus on the danger posed to LGBTQ rights comes on the eve of the 22nd anniversary of another turning point in the fight for the rights of LGBTQ Americans.
The victim of what many people say was a hate crime in Wyoming this morning has died. 21-year-old Matthew Shepard was found beaten and unconscious last week near the University of Wyoming. Shepard was gay, and while police say robbery was the primary motive for the attack, gay rights groups call it a hate crime.
At the time of Matthew Shepard's brutal murder, hate crime laws did not protect Americans based on their sexual orientation. And after years of struggling to get it passed, Congress eventually sent the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Act to President Obama, who signed it into law in 2009. And joining me now are Dennis and Judy Shepard, the parents of Matthew and the founders of the Matthew Shepard Foundation, and Alphonso David, president of the Human Rights Campaign. Dennis and Judy and Alphonso, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I should point out and disclose that in 2016, I was honored to receive a Making a Difference award from the Matthew Shepard Foundation. So thank you again for that. And Dennis and Judy, let me start with you. Given the tenor and tone of the conversation that the country is engaged in, particularly in this election campaign, how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will take a hammer to the hard-fought rights that LGBTQ Americans have fought so hard to obtain?
Well, it's certainly a fear, and I think it's justified based on the Senate's hypocrisy. We should let the people decide, I think, on the replacement seat. But if we have a court that is so set on not helping marginalized communities achieve equality, I think we're all in trouble.
Dennis, let me pull you into this. I mean, again, tomorrow is the 22nd anniversary. The country has changed a lot when it comes to its views of LGBTQ Americans, the laws and the rights that have been won by the community. But how concerned are you that all the hard work that the Matthew Shepard Foundation has been working on is potentially on the cusp of being eroded?
Well, one thing you've got to remember is, number one, we have a law. We also have precedents that these people, the LGBTQ community, has been living out in the public eye for years now. And people are starting to realize they're just ordinary, boring people too, just like the straight community. And that's the important thing. They're hardworking citizens. They have families. They just want to have a career, and they love their country. There's no difference. That's why I can't understand what the problem is. This country is a democracy. It's not a theocracy. And trying to base something like that on other aspects of the country just confuses me.
Yes, and we know from recent polls, right, that the country largely is in favor of equality for the gay community. So listen to the voters. Do what they want to do, not what your previous thoughts were. It's a new world. So get with the program.
So, Judy, let me stick with you for one more minute. So if you had an opportunity to talk to Judge Amy Coney Barrett, what would you tell her?
Well, parent to parent, mom to mom, I would say, Amy, if your child comes out as gay, I hope you understand that that's who they are. It's not their choice. It's nothing you did. It's just who they are. People are people. And I would hate to think that you would reject one of your children because they happen to be gay. We're all humans trying to fight for the same things, which is acceptance and a good life and safety in our workplace and in our homes. And I hope that she would recognize that as a human being.
Alphonso David, president of the Human Rights Campaign, you penned an op-ed for the August Washington Post with Mr. Obergefell talking about the danger posed to the LGBT community by the Supreme Court. Talk more about it, more specifically about what's at stake with the Supreme Court.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. The LGBTQ community is in a state of crisis, and this election could be the turning point. We have hit the highest number of anti-transgender deaths from violence than any other year since we've tracked it. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you mentioned before, have declared an open war on marriage equality. And we have LGBTQ people are dying of the pandemic and suffering significant economic impacts. 1 out of 5 LGBTQ people live in poverty. So what does a Coney Barrett confirmation mean? Our relationships are threatened. Our access to government services are threatened. Our access to services provided to any other member of the public are threatened. In short, an appointment of Judge Amy Coney Barrett simply means that we will become second-class citizens. Our marriages between same-sex couples become skim milk marriages. We are denied access to health care. We're denied the ability to be foster and adoptive parent. We're denied services that anyone else can get in the public square. This is a significant concern for members of the LGBTQ community. We know that there are 57 million voters in this country. The majority of people, equality voters, I should say, the majority of people are saying the next justice should be selected by the next president. And instead of heeding those words, the Senate majority and President Trump are trying to jam through this nomination through, and it's going to have significant collateral consequences on the lives of LGBTQ people and marginalized communities.
And one of those collateral problems is something that was pointed out in another Washington Post story here, where it says the court is set to hear oral arguments in a case that could significantly scale back LGBTQ rights on November 4th, the day after the election. In Fulton v. Philadelphia, private agencies that receive taxpayer funding to provide government services, such as foster care agencies, food banks, and homeless shelters, could be given a constitutional right to deny services not just to people who are LGBTQ, but even to religious groups such as Jews, Muslims, or Mormons. So this gets to what you were just talking about, doesn't it, Alphonso?
Oh, absolutely. And for context, more than 40% of children who are homeless are LGBTQ. And those children go through, in many cases, through the foster care system. Now, if you are a foster care agency or adoptive agency and you do business with the government, you're receiving monies from the government in order to provide these services. What these agencies are attempting to do is effectively say, we're going to deny same-sex couples the right to be foster parents, deny religious minorities the ability to be foster parents, deny single women because they believe that it's inconsistent with the tenets of their faith. We have religious liberties in this country, but what they're trying to do is create exemptions to supersede individual rights. We should all have the right to exercise our fundamental rights, and our fundamental rights should not be subjected to additional religious exemptions. The First Amendment has existed for decades, but so has the 14th Amendment. And this case is really significant for same-sex couples, for single women, for religious minorities all over the country.
Dennis and Judy, given what's happening in the country right now and the work of the foundation, I'm wondering what you're hearing from the LGBT community about what's going on. How concerned or afraid are the people you work with and talk to?
Well, I think everybody's afraid. Everybody we've talked to, as Alphonso was saying, the rise in hate crimes and the lack of interest by the current DOJ scares us all. We are definitely in a very different time now when things are working against us rather than for us, as they did in the Obama and Biden administration. So just regular LGBT folks and folks who are working as advocates, we're all nervous about what's going to happen, and not just in the courts, but legislatively too. which is why everybody's saying, y'all got to have a plan to vote and get out there and do it.
Dennis, let me give you...
Something I emphasize all the time is that we have two sons, one straight and one gay. If Matt was alive today, why aren't they equal? One of them has all the rights of an American. He's our straight son, but our gay son wouldn't have all the same rights. Why? They're both born in this country. They both pay taxes. They both want to serve. They love their country. So you tell me what the difference is between the two.
And that is an excellent question to leave this part of the conversation. Dennis and Judy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Dennis and Judy Shepard and Alphonso David, president of the Human Rights Campaign, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.